If it is or if it ain't, it's gonna come out. Good morning, everybody. It's your girl, Miracle Sims, and you're listening to God, Sex, and Love, your daily dose of inspiration and juice. It is January the 18th, 2023, and today the topic is evil for evil. I don't know what's going on. I don't know if something is coming against this word for today. I don't know, y'all. All I can say is that those that tune into the live version of this, they may know that, for whatever reason, as soon as I went live, the device that I'm using to record just restarted out of nowhere. And so obviously I was live for a moment, or it was live without me being here. But here I am, y'all. I know that it's a little bit later than usual, but obviously that must be for a reason. So yes, y'all, the topic today is evil for evil. As for yesterday, if I give you guys a quick update, I mean, I was out there hustling in the streets. You guys know how that is. And I was taking in a lot of information yesterday, y'all. Like a lot of information. First I came across this interview that Tasha K did, y'all. I don't know, did y'all hear about that? She exposed this supposed pastor for some salacious things that had been done with a young man at the age of 15. And yeah, it was crazy. It was crazy to hear about that and hear details of that in that gentleman's testimony and everything. You know, now in his adult life, he's testifying basically or sharing about what happened and whatnot. And, it's just crazy because on one hand, when we just talking about this last week, leave kids alone, kids and sexual anything is not good, it's not something that needs to be, I really do feel like kids don't need to be introduced to sexual things at young ages. And so, yeah, and this is what will happen, what's done in the dark will come to the light. And so, I came across that information yesterday. I also was listening to the Bible Project and, just getting a new perspective on this concept of heaven and everything like that. And so, your girl was taking in a lot of information yesterday while I was out there hustling in the streets, getting my dollars up, you know what I mean? And everything like that. And that's pretty much what my day majority entailed. Like basically after I did the juice, I went out to go and do all of that. And then came back home and it was time for my little guy to get in class. And so, he seemed to enjoy his class yesterday, even though he kind of fell asleep like right before the class, and so I had to wake him up to be like, "Hey, come on, it's time for class," and stuff. So it took him a moment to kind of like wake up and stuff, but he seemed to have a good class. So I'm sure we're gonna talk more about, I guess, a little bit of these different things that I took in yesterday. But anywho, let's get into this juice, y'all. So, evil for evil. Well. The inspiration, I would say, came partially from a verse that I came across yesterday. And I guess just maybe even thinking about, again, that interview that I listened to, and the young man's testimony. And just thinking about us as humans, right? Thinking about how we handle things. And then how the Bible tells us to handle things. So that's where the concept or the title or the topic or whatever, evil for evil, came from. that's what I ended up looking up this morning and studying. And so, yeah, let's get into it, y'all. Let's get into it. So, I want to share with you all some of the verses that I came across yesterday that really, really stood out to me. Those that listened to the audio version, I actually threw in yesterday's after show because I ended up answering some questions that I felt like went a little bit deeper about this topic that I was talking about yesterday. And so in that, I mentioned these verses that I'm getting ready to share now. But yeah, they came back to my heart and mind this morning when I thought about this concept of evil for evil. So now, to get a full context, I would say check out the Go Deeper section, 1 Peter 2:18 through 25. But I'm just going to share 19 through 21, okay? So this is what it says. For this is thankworthy, if a man for conscience toward God endure grief, suffering wrongfully. For what glory is it when we be buffeted for your fault? Ye shall take it patiently. But if when ye do well and suffer for it, ye take it patiently, this is acceptable with God. For even hereunto were ye called, because Christ also suffered for us, leaving us an example that we shall follow his steps. I guess this really stood out to me this morning because, I did wake up at 4. I woke up at like a regular time, so there was no, Strong's Concordance per se, or no specific time or anything for me to look up this morning. But when I woke up at 4, I can admit that I was a little bit distracted this morning. I was thinking about a lot of different things. And then when I did my prayer meditation and everything like that, I still kind of was a little bit distracted. But at some point this morning, I ended up watching this interview of Martin Luther King Jr. I believe it was on NBC, and I don't know if I had ever seen him in that light in regards to just answering questions, and obviously, I know people was noticing how eloquent he was and how great of a speaker he was and this, that, and the other. But, also listening to the different things he had to say. And obviously that was the interview that people got the whole quote from when he talks about, the boots and the bootstraps and everything like that, right? But I don't know, I guess just listening to him this morning and how he talked about, protesting peacefully and everything like that, and how he, said that his values had a lot to do with the reason why he chose to go that route versus going the route of violence and everything like that. And he went on to explain it in a beautiful way. So by all means, y'all should go and try to find that interview of him. And like I said, I think it was with NBC. But I guess, again, I was reminded, this is probably what reminded me of the verse yesterday, or the verses that I just shared with you all. At the end of the day, we as humans, like not going to split up any races or anything like that. I think, let's just say humans, right? We as humans, I think we take issue with going through any hardships. We take issue with any form of suffering. And then we might even point at God and be like, how are you allowing me to suffer, right? If you're good, if you're this, if you're that, then why am I suffering? And I know I was listening to a, conversation that David Lynn was having earlier this week, or I forgot when it was that I was listening to it, but he was also addressing this concept that, this person was feeling as if, I've been suffering in life, X, Y, and Z. And it's like, well, that's a part of life. Once sin came in, there's always going to be some form of suffering. The Bible tells us that, But for the believer, right, for the Christ believer and everything like that, you can look at your suffering differently, right? And then it goes even deeper when you think about it when it comes to this, what the Bible is asking us to do. This whole, I know y'all know it, right? Turning the other cheek and all of that. Like, and I guess, in some ways, this reminds me of what I was taking in about heaven yesterday, right? The conversations that I was listening to on the Bible Project. Like, there's just a whole different mindset, and values have a whole different meaning. Heavenly values, biblically. It just has a whole different meaning than what we do and what we know, I think. Because you can see that in the words that Jesus said, right? And you can see that in the things that the Bible is telling us to do. This is so foreign to think, like, if somebody's doing me wrong, to just bear it, right? To just, in some ways, let it be, right? And you just keep doing good. And now I believe that this verse would, in the context they were talking about, a master and servant dynamic. And, if you have a good master, X, Y, and Z, or even a bad master, if you continue to do good, like this is honorable to God, right? And we might feel some way about that. Like, I think any person will feel some way about that. What you mean, Lord? I'm just supposed to let someone do this to me? I'm just supposed to X, Y, and Z? And it's like, well, yeah, that's what it's saying. And then I even asked the question this morning myself. I just was like, well, Lord, what does this mean for, if someone's trying to take my life? Do I just let it happen, or whatever the case is? And I believe that's where, when I went deeper about that, I ended up coming across calm.org. There was a article that's called "God Says You Shall Not Kill, but He Kills. Why Does He Contradict Himself?" It's an article on calm.org by Matt Slick. Obviously, that would give some understanding to that concept, because there is a difference between kill, right, and murder. And from my understanding, the commandment is not to murder, not necessarily not to kill. And the Bible does go deeper, but you guys can look up those verses that, reflect and talk about that in regards to, if someone's coming in your home, X, Y, and Z, and that person is killed in the process, the blood is not on your hands, because that's obviously self-defense. But the interesting thing is, even as I looked at that question there, it's saying, why does he contradict himself when God kills, right? And so the best explanation that I heard of this is by Frank Turek. And I was thinking about that this morning when I came across this, that, when we're asking God, like, God is not murdering and killing us, even though it may look that way to us, right? Because that's the only way we know how to define or explain, life being taken of some sort, or whatever the case is. But there's a totally different thing when you're the creator of earth, right? You give life, you take life. Is that murder? Is that killing? Frank Turek explains it beautifully, but the short answer is no. Because the giver of life can take it anytime he wants. So that's a whole nother concept, though. But to us, right? Because we're not givers of life, right? So to us, he does put a commandment on us to not murder, right? Unjustly killing someone, right? But at the same time, there is grace for those that happen to, quote unquote, kill in self-defense. So it's a deep concept when we're thinking about all of this type of stuff, and there's a lot of questions to be asked in regards to this. But again, I took this deep dive into just evil for evil, and so let's keep going. Well, Romans 12:21, it says, "Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. Um, I mean, it definitely reminds me of what I was hearing Martin Luther King talk about when I watched the video this morning. Um, and yeah, but let me keep going because all of these kind of entangle with each other. So the next verse I had written down was Romans 12:17, and it says, "Repay no one evil for evil, but give thought to do what is honorable in the sight of all." So, I mean, do we do this though? Nah, not. I mean, I think majority of us do, right? In whatever way. Because I mean, I guess if we there would be, I guess, way more killing or way more like, you know, death if we didn't exercise this to some extent, right? Because people would just take things in their own hands and repay all the evil that ever happened to them with evil. But there is a lot of people that, do take things in their own hands. That's why we do see, again, the killings and, well, murders in particular. That's why we see these things happen. But let's keep going because once again, I'm back at Romans 12. And this time I wrote down 17 through 18. And it says, "Repay no one evil for evil, but give thought to do what is honorable in the sight of all. If possible, so far as it depends on you, live peaceably with all." I mean, the concept or the quote that just came in my head is easier said than done. And I mean, again, I don't know. I don't know if that's necessarily true because, I feel like a lot of us are doing that. Because again, there will be a lot more death if people were just always, answering evil with evil, right? You've done me this way, I'm going to do you the same way. But at the same time, I think we can acknowledge that we, as humans do that, that is something that humans do, repay evil for evil. But again, this concept, right? What is the Lord asking us to do here? And why is he asking us to do it? I mean, I know there's all these verses to say, hey, well, vengeance is mine, say the Lord, and all these different things. There's plenty of verses to go deeper and peruse and let marinate on your heart, souls, and minds about like what he's actually asking us to do. But I guess the thing is, if you're struggling with this, hopefully by you taking a deep dive today or listening to the sound of my voice or whatever the case may be, hopefully it will encourage you, inspire you to do things God's way. Let him take care of the vengeance. Let him take care of the evil. Like they say, turning the other cheek. And I feel like I heard this recently, but I don't know where I got it from, but I can't remember at the moment. But basically, it was like turning the other cheek in faith to know that God will protect you from that next strike or whatever the case is. And even if he don't, understanding that, all things work together for the good of those that love God. One more verse to share, y'all, and it's Luke 6:27. It says, "But I say to you who hear, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you." Yeah. I mean, this is a foreign concept to us as humans, I believe. I feel like this is something that is just hard to do for a lot of us and everything like that. But I believe that there is honor in doing so. You just never know. Again, when you sit here and think about all these different things and, we're thinking about, well, why am I suffering? Why am I going through this? Why am I going through that? Why do I have to, Lord, why are you asking me to not respond or not to respond in the same way that people respond to me? Again, y'all, I guess y'all got to go and take that deep dive on your own and ask the Lord those questions for yourself and ask the Lord what that's going to look like in your life. But I mean, I guess ultimately that's the juice this morning. That's what your girl studied. And so that is the juice. Now, the Bible verse of today is 1 Timothy 6:12. It says, "Fight the good fight of faith, lay hold on eternal life, whereunto thou art also called and hast professed a good profession before many witnesses." Friends, I hope you all enjoyed this juice this morning. Thank you so much for listening to God, Sex, and Love, your daily dose of inspiration and juice. I pray you guys go forth and have a wonderful day, and I look forward to talking to you all tomorrow, if the Lord's will. Bye-bye. This episode was sponsored in part by the A1 Mission Agency, book number 1, The Origin, a Christian espionage series written by Timothy Bevan. This is the first book of the 7-book series that follows the espionage-filled lives of Toby, Scott, and Scooter, and explores themes such as lukewarmness, self-righteousness, redemption, and good versus evil. Purchase your copy today at Amazon.